We've become a culture that really loves its hot takes, but I'm not sure all these hot takes are helping us love each other. Welcome back to the 50/50 Project, where every week I talk through an item on a list made up of one thing I've learned for each year I've lived. This week we're back in the conflict category with thing number 31. Hold on to your hot takes. I think this is probably going to be a short episode today because it's a really simple idea. But it's also an idea that I think we as a culture, and I definitely include myself in that, are increasingly struggling to remember. And it's just that we are not morally or legally required to approach everything in the entire world as a bitterly divisive controversy about which we must have and express a strident opinion. And let me just say from the outset that I am not saying that if you feel strongly about something, that you shouldn't have your say, whatever that say happens to be. Actually, I think it's really important for each of us to think about the issues we really care about, to formulate our positions, and then to express them where it's productive or cathartic or whatever. What I'm talking about today is that we are becoming increasingly programmed, I think, to see every single piece of information, however innocuous or neutral or removed from us personally, that crosses our line of sight as a call to anger or a duty to contest, or sometimes even just an opportunity to lash out at other people. And I'll try to explain what I mean through a very specific example. So, we just had Taylor Swift here for 3 nights. Indianapolis was the last American stop ever on the Eras Tour, and it was a big deal. And Indy knows how to host a big ass event. They just really do a great job of going all in. So they renamed the downtown streets after some of her song titles, and they put a 300-foot tall picture of her up on the Marriott. And the local police partnered with local school kids to hand out friendship bracelets to visitors. And a lot of the cultural centers in the city planned events that locked into her concerts. And that's because the Eras Tour is a really big deal. It brought like 250,000 people to the city, all told, and it generated an estimated 9 figures of revenue for hotels and restaurants and merchants. And this city just has a history of going all out for important happenings. Like when we have the Indy 500, there are tons of events that spin out of that. When we hosted the NBA All-Star Games not that long ago, there were lots of promotional crossovers with that, and they had giant basketball players up on the Marriott where Taylor is now. But even saying all of that, I can admit it's been a lot of Taylor. But I think that stands to reason for the city and the scale of the event. However, there's been some backlash. Some people are not fans, and some people seem to see her as a politicized figure lately, and some folks are just sort of worn out with hearing about it. And on some level, I get that, but there have been a whole mess of hot takes. So the example that really sticks with me has to do with the local children's museum. And the Indianapolis Children's Museum very famously has a big set of dinosaurs, like 50-foot tall dinosaurs in front of their building. And these dinos are often dressed up to tie in with local stuff that's happening. Like when we had the eclipse back in April, they wore eclipse glasses for about a month. And when we hosted the US Olympic swim team time trials, which, by the way, the city built a very, very large metal replica of the Eiffel Tower downtown for, the dinosaurs wore Olympic medals around their necks. So there's a precedent for them dressing up the dinos. And I don't think anybody was really surprised when they put enormous friendship bracelets on them to tie in with Taylor. And I think they were darling. And I think they were meant to promote museum activities and also let local kids and families who maybe weren't able to get tickets to the Eras Tour an opportunity to be part of the excitement. And I think most people here just enjoyed that immensely. But, not everybody. And every once in a while, one of the local news outlets or the museum itself would post a picture or a little story on the dinosaurs. And sometimes in the comments on those stories, not every time, not most of the time, but enough times, there were hot takes. about how Taylor's a talentless hack and how she's overhyped and why the city shouldn't be doing any of her marketing work for her or why she's an awful influence that shouldn't be given access to the children of Indiana. And maybe some of those people really did feel those sentiments deeply. Maybe they live and breathe that message. I don't know. But I'm willing to bet that most of those comments were just hot takes, just reflexive urges to stir shit. Did those people have the right to say whatever they wanted to say about Taylor or the dinosaurs or the decline of society indicated by both of them? Of course they did. Of course they did. They absolutely have the right to say that stuff, and I would argue for it and defend it if that right were ever threatened. So, just to be clear, 100% within their rights to have hot takes about the dinosaurs. But why, though? What do you get out of savaging a post put up by the local children's museum? What does that accomplish? What does it add to the conversation? It takes away from the enjoyment that other people might get out of that post. And I know that because every time someone posts an angry or bitter hot take, other people feel the need to chime in underneath to make exactly that point. And then the battle's really on. But again, why? Over what? Can we maybe start rationing our vitriol for things that actually matter? I feel like we just live in this society where so many of us are primed to go absolutely ham on everything all the time. And I'm becoming increasingly concerned about the way that we, and again, we is also me here, feel like we have to have some kind of response to everything, particularly on social media, but sometimes also in real life. Anyway, I don't think this is unique to Taylor. If it were some other rock star with some other kind of style or personal profile or fan base or ideology, those stories would probably attract their own set of weird hot takes. It's like every observation or event must also be a controversy, and all of us have the job to do of making it clear which side we stand on. Even if we don't have particular expertise on that issue, even if we don't really care about that issue, we can hot take about everything, absolutely everything. If you were to happen across a post today about a beloved lost dog who miraculously made it home safely, some people are still going to find conflict in the comments on that thing. Somebody's going to spout off about how the owner must be an idiot to have lost the dog in the first place. Or, barring that, somebody might just write apropos of absolutely nothing, something promoting or disparaging, I don't know, one of the presidential candidates or the governor candidates. There is absolutely nothing we can't take a stand on or co opt or redirect from. And consequently, it's getting to the point where there's nothing we can't ruin. And I'm focusing on comments here instead of our own posts because it seems that this is where the laziest and the least genuine stuff lives. If you want to write your own post and have a hot take there, go at it. It's there for people to take or leave. It's not intruding into some other existing conversation. And for me personally, I think that's kind of a litmus test. If I care enough to write a post, I kind of go over some effort threshold. And I know it's more likely to be a real position on something I actually care about and not just a reflexive hot take. I think we all have hot takes in our heads. I think we have all always had hot takes in our heads, opinions, preferences, arguments, etc. But maybe before the advent of the comment forum, we tended to leave them in our heads. In like 1987, for example, when we still got our news in paper form or on the evening news broadcast, we had to be pretty damn bothered by something to make the effort required to tell somebody else about it. You'd have to write a letter to the editor, put a stamp on it, mail it out, wait a couple weeks, and maybe it would appear in the paper. Or you'd have to go to the trouble of describing the story you just heard on the news to somebody else before you could get around to opining on it. So I think in the past, we just had to get hotter before we bothered with a take, if that makes any sense. But these days, there's a comment box conveniently located under every goddamn thing. And we have become conditioned to the point that I think it's almost a low key addiction to use it, or at the very least, to read through and see what other people have used it for. And as a consequence, we're embroiled in or witness to so much more conflict than we were in the past about everything from dinosaur friendship bracelets to whether the ad Dunkin' Donuts just posted is too racy. It's a lot. It's too much. And I think it's tiring, whether we're writing to these comments or responding to these comments or just perusing them and taking them in. I think this kind of hot taking and shit posting is killing off a lot of the joy that we once felt in the common square, where we could meet to talk about current events or share experiences and be bonded by that. I think it's one of the reasons that public life can feel pretty insufferable at times these days. I think it's one of the reasons we don't like each other as much as we used to. And it means that we're in a defensive posture much more than we used to be. It means we take less pleasure in our communal conversations. And that's bad for all of us, in my opinion. And maybe more than at any other time in my entire life, I really feel like our well being and the survival of our community writ large depends on our ability to just stop hating each other so much. And hot takes aren't going to get us there. So I think my plan going forward is to try to avoid writing them entirely and just live my life more closely to the mantra that if I have something to say and it's important enough, I'll go write my own stupid post about it on my own damn wall. But more important for me is I'm going to try to stop reading them even because they kill my happiness and they color my perceptions of my fellow citizens. And that's an awful lot of power to cede to a little box on a screen. Okay, then. That's my hot take on hot takes, and that's enough for one day. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and I'll be back next week with thing number 32.